And welcome back, all podcasters and listeners. Back with the Hitting the Hardcourt podcast. Um, yeah, so thanks. We had to thank Mickey for coming on the show, talk a little bit of L2M. For those of you that are just joining us today, we covered trades, covered changes in the NBA, and started talking a little bit about the injury bug. And let's actually get into that right now for a little bit because it's coming up to the playoff time and teams are either extremely hurt or they're extremely well rested. And if you're looking at a team like the Golden State Warriors, Kevin Durant went down and he's out indefinitely, supposedly out for possibly 4 to 6 weeks. They're saying for early timetable won't be back possibly until the playoffs. And the Warriors are in the playoffs, so there's no maybe there for them. But when you're looking at this team, and this is your team, Fonz, how significant was that injury for Kevin Durant and this team?
I mean, it's extremely significant simply because of what it could have been, right?
Right.
It could have been something so much worse. And, you never want to see anybody get hurt. You never want to, especially something that could potentially derail his career or have lasting effects even farther down the line. So, yeah, I mean, just like everybody else was hoping that it wasn't as bad as it seemed, or as, fearing the worst case scenario, and it wasn't. So thank God for that. But in reality, as you said, the Warriors are in the playoffs, and I don't think they really need him until maybe the second round. They could probably, let's say they play the Nuggets in the first round, they can, win that in 4, 5, 6 games. But I think once they actually get in, facing somebody like potentially the Rockets or the Jazz, who shout out to the Jazz. I'm very happy that they're finally good. Yeah, that's when they'll need him.
Is this something, this injury like the Curry injury or last year?
I think, I'm not completely sure. I think Curry's was a grade 1, or was it? It's similar. I think both of them are MCL sprains. But as with all injuries, there are different levels of severity and different recovery times. Yada yada yada. We're not doctors.
Do you think it's as severe as far as the team is concerned? Do you think that as Curry got injured, in that, what was it, that first game of the playoffs last season, do you think that it's as significant to Golden State with Kevin Durant being injured at this time of year, or do you think it has less of an impact than Curry's did?
I think this one has more of an impact simply because the team doesn't have as much depth as it did last year. Say what you want about Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut, but they were two guys who gave valuable minutes to the Warriors, and they had Sean Livingston capable coming in as somebody to fill in the role. Now the Warriors, they don't have Bogut, they don't have Barnes. They replace them with David West and Pat McCaw, essentially. So the Matt Barnes signing is great. Matt Barnes is he's could be one of the worst people in the NBA. But he's the type of guy who, when he's on your team, you love him because he does everything that it takes. Plus, he said coming back to the Warriors means a lot because it was the last team his mom saw him play for before she died of cancer. So I think, if anything, this is Matt Barnes' most significant deal in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, good for him. Good. It means a lot. So
That's. I think if you look at the injuries at each time, Curry's, I think I mean, you do mention the depth. So the Warriors could essentially hang on and eventually got through that playoff series. What I kind of see is that the timing of this couldn't have been better.
Oh yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, even if there was something lingering there for Kevin Durant, he's down, he gets some rest, he come back, you shake out the cobwebs just in time for playoffs, and then you can kind of surge through. Whereas if you're the Warriors last year, you had two things going against you. You're trying to beat this insane record, this insane in-season record of trying to win 73 games. And then on top of that, then you're tired from that, and then your star player gets injured as you're trying to get through and win a championship. And whereas it was a very sure thing that they were going to win it all, now you've essentially depleted your firepower at that time last year by what could have been like 30-40% if you're really looking at it, if you could make up some numbers. Whereas right now, yeah, they're going to lose games against teams, playoff bound teams like the Wizards. They're going to have close games against other teams, but I think being a championship caliber team, they still have that good core in their starting five to where they can maintain a decent run and still lose a few games. Like I already said, they've already clinched a playoff spot. It's just a question of how many games can they prove themselves to win without Kevin Durant. I think this is a great chance for their proving ground.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing for them is just to maintain the lead over San Antonio, just to hold on to the 1 seed.
Mm-hmm. And
because that Plus, like, people forget,
crazy.
this is a team that still has Draymond, Clay, Steph. Three of the best players in the league.
Which do you think would be a bigger impact to this team, other than Kevin Durant being injured? Klay Thompson going down, or Draymond Green going down?
Draymond. I mean, I love Clay, but Draymond is sort of kind of like the lifeblood of the team. It's like the whole, he's the enforcer. He kicks nuts. I'm not even going to deny that. It's getting annoying for me too. Like, just don't do that. Like, why? But like, he's a guy who does everything. He's the best defender. He's a ridiculously good passer. He can shoot threes, tough, defends 1 through 5. Yeah.
Well, there's no question that with Kevin Durant being out, their offensive power has gone down. But there's, at the same sense, they're definitely playoff bound. They're going to be a team to be reckoned with, only to be chased by, oddly, the San Antonio Spurs. It seems like for the last 3 or 4 seasons, Warriors have been up there in top wins, and the San Antonio Spurs have been right behind them every step of the way. But let's go to the opposite end. Go to the other conference. Let's talk about the Cavs. And J.R. Smith, Kevin Love still out. Recently losing their game to Boston. Another potential playoff team. These teams, no team in the Eastern Conference is clinched yet. However, it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to be seeing these two teams in most likely the Eastern Conference finals. How significant is it that that the injury bug is sort of that they're sort of getting over it, and how much of an impact do you think will it have once J.R. Smith and Kevin Love come back?
I mean, it's huge. Like, the reason why they added guys like Darren Williams and Derek Williams and Andrew Bogut is to have more depth while JR and Kevin Love are out. So when they come back, the starting lineup of, Thompson, Love, LeBron, JR, and Kyrie will start. And then off the bench, they have Kyle Korver as a, 3-point specialist. Derek Williams is an energy guy. Darren Williams, backup point guard, still has a lot of skill left to contribute. And then Andrew Bogut, like Australian badass, and defensive, like defensive stalwart. Like before Boga, Thompson's like semi decent um, as a defender, but like Boga, when he's keyed in, when he's healthy, um, is one of the best rim protectors in the league. So if they go up against somebody like John Wall or the Wizards, where they have Marcin Gortat, or the Celtics, Al Horford, or for the Raptors, Jonas Valanciunas, guys like those, they just put Bogut on them, and basically, they also make sure that John Wall, if he drives by, won't have an easy shot at the rim. So I think once again, it's really frustrating that the Cavs are able to get these guys because it's a great looking roster. Well, not great, but it's a really good looking roster once Love and JR come back.
I think it's to be fair, I think it's a good looking roster when these guys execute and when these guys win. It's another thing for them to say that they're a good looking roster and we can definitely depend on these guys to win a championship. I don't think that you're going to win a championship on a 10-day contract type of player. I mean, he's not DJ Benga from a while ago from the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't think that as great as Derek Williams is and as great as Deron Williams is, that you're going to automatically say, hey, we got a championship caliber team here. But one player, Scrappy, has been fighting for contracts for a while. Darren Williams, he's sort of on his last legs. He sort of got his lifeblood drained when he was in Brooklyn. But you saw a little bit of what they might expect for him long term in that Boston game. He didn't play a lot of minutes in this game, but he played some crucial minutes of where you saw some decision making where they wanted him to be the scorer, and if you wanted to be the scorer, then I think you need to execute, and his ability to execute on plays right now isn't as great as it should be. Hopefully that changes around for them, but you express your angst for another team that I want to talk about right now. It's just switching gears in the Toronto Raptors, and Kyle Lowry is out for what I'm guessing will be another few games at least. How big in the grand scheme of things, because we're talking about a team that was there last year in the playoffs and were a combined 24 minutes of solid execution in the fourth quarter away from beating the Cleveland Cavaliers across a few games, of course. How significant is Kyle Lowry really to the success of this Toronto team?
The Lowry injury?
Yes.
I mean, it's a lot of people have been saying this, and I agree with like the whole "it's a blessing in disguise" thing. Because as much as it hurts the Raptors in the standings and having to play Corey Joseph more minutes, in reality, Kyle Lowry has worked his ass off for the last 2 years or so. He's a guy who plays really hard, plays a ton of minutes, always competes, always gives his all, and never wants to stop playing, right? And like the knock on the Raptors as a whole in the playoffs has been, sure, they get there, but they never perform well. Like Lowry just couldn't shoot anything during last season's playoffs.
Do you think that's sort of a fatigue thing?
Yeah, I think so. It's like
just overplaying Kyle Lowry for that long, playing DeRozan for so long, and that they don't have a deep bench.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like, the guys have been carrying the load of a team for so long that at some point it has to come back to bite them. And over the past 2 seasons, it's bitten them in the playoffs. So I think most Raptors fans would much rather have Kyle Lowry have this like not so serious injury, just to clear out all those loose bodies and stuff, and have
Mhm.
him rest, have him, continue to be bros with DeMar. Shout out to that relationship, by the way. Um, and really let him rest for a while, and then he comes back maybe a week before the playoffs start. Get some reps in, and when they finally, when it's finally go time, he goes, plays well, rather than the opposite where he's playing the entire season and then like breaks down once again in the playoffs.
Right.
I'm pretty
Little
sure like Mick would love that.
Popovich esque sort of strategy there. Rest them, and
Exactly.
definitely a bit of a scheme there, sort of like Philadelphia and the way that they rest their players or rested. Um, let's talk about hashtag trust the process and the recent injury, season-ending injury for Joel Embiid. Um, had a great debut season. Had played 31 games. We are 2/3, almost 3/4 of the way through the season, and he has played less than half of those games total.
Didn't he play 31 games?
31.
Yeah.
31. What? Um, okay. We'll get into how disappointing teams have been in comparison to what we expected at the beginning of the season. But how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big is this injury for you?
Simply because of who it is, it's a 10. It's Joel Embiid. I feel like so bad for Sixers fans because this has been such a roller coaster season, right? Like even
Right.
it's been the whole okay, cool. We fired Hinkie. Trust the process. Whatever. The process has stopped. Ryan Colangelo's come in. We got Ben Simmons, and then turns out, oh yeah, Ben Simmons isn't gonna start the season. Cool. And then the whole Joel Embiid is gonna be playing limited minutes. Cool. And then it's just like, okay, the team is winning some games. TJ McConnell, legend. Dario Saric playing well. Bob Covington, solid all around player. And then everything that's great about Joel is just being a guy who honestly doesn't care on the court. Plays. It's really fun, tough guy. And then all of a sudden it's okay. We're holding him out for a bit because injury concern, yada yada. Don't want to overplay him, and then you see him dancing in the Meek Mill concert. Was it Meek?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then cool, that's great. Joel Embiid lots likes to have fun. Then turns out, like a couple of hours after, torn meniscus. Ben Simmons
And
is out for the year.
yep.
Like the only respite that the Sixers fans have is, it's Darius Arch is playing really well, and like the rest of those guys are playing well, and they're fun. They're
I
still
guess
fun.
the most disappointing thing about this whole team is that their players play well,
Yeah.
but no one knows what to do with them. It's sort of like, okay, I'm gonna get really nerdy here. Um, you have this set, like you've never played this game before, but you have all these high level characters and everyone's looking at your set of characters, and they're like, oh my god, you got this and you got this guy and you got that thing, and they're so impressed with what you have, and you're kind of looking down, and if it were just a video game, all you're doing is essentially pressing buttons and praying that something happens. And that's what I think this organization has been doing. They're letting these guys play. They know that they're good. They just don't know how the whole process works, but they're saying trust the process. And it's like, what is the process? They have no clear scheme. They have no clear style of play. They have no character. There's no identity to this team. And what makes me the most disappointed is that this team is still is in actual playoff contention. Keep this in mind. With a losing record, the Philadelphia 76ers are probably about 5 or 6 games, which means they can go on a streak because they've beaten some really good teams, and they could be in playoff contention for the 8th, maybe even the 7th seed. And I think what the most surprising thing is that no one saw injuries like these coming in. You mentioned the Ben Simmons injury. I called that before he even came out of college, that, teams should stay away from him and probably draft him in the second round because he's probably got a lingering lower body injury. Someone like Jahlil Okafor. Okay, there's another story right there. He's not injured, but what's happening with this kid? No one really knows what to do with him. They're thinking about trading him. He doesn't really have the mindset to be within the NBA. And as far as a PR perspective, he's been sort of a nightmare. What's happening with this organization? They get a bunch of bigs, a bunch of very talented number 1 seeds, and they're doing worse than Cleveland did from when they drafted Anthony Bennett and Kyrie Irving back to back. So when you're looking at it from an organizational perspective, I'm completely disappointed, not just in the organization, but in this injury, because this kid is a human highlight and a bright light for this team.
Yeah. 100%.
We were talking about disappointments or surprises for the season. It's commented a little bit on the segment in the first part of the segment about how surprising teams were doing. I want to talk about a team that didn't surprise me this season. Washington Wizards have not been surprising for me this season. And that's a good thing, because they were, and they are like this. They're like that relationship that you have. It's an on again and off again type of thing. And they have a good year and then they have a bad year. They have a good year, they have a bad year. And they've done it with essentially some of the same personnel they've had for the past 3 or 4 seasons. So it's not surprising that they have an on season this season. If you dig down deep into where they're at, what is surprising is the fact of how they got there. And I think that it's more surprising that they've continued to stay the course and allow teams to beat themselves in lower rankings than the fact that they have actually, the Wizards have achieved wins. So shout out to the Washington Wizards for staying the course and for pressing on. Let me ask you, what do you think about the Chicago Bulls this season?
I mean, garbage fire, maybe? No, because I remember we had a pod, I think, over the summer when they signed Dwayne Wade. And, it was fun, it was great. Dwayne Wade coming back to Chicago. And then they signed Rondo. You're just like, what? Why? Rondo hasn't been good in a while.
I think we all talked about that
yeah.
team. We said in that podcast, fun team, don't know what they're gonna do, could be a 7th seed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was most people they didn't have a lot of depth. They were relying on Nikola Mirotic and Doug McBuckets to shoot, and it hasn't worked out. Because so much internal strife, and it just sucks to see that from one of the league's premier organizations that they can't run it properly, and poor Fred Hoiberg just can't catch a break.
He really can't. I mean, he did some decent things at Iowa State, but I don't think that he came into a great situation. And I don't. Here's the thing. I don't blame anyone for where Chicago's at right now. I think Chicago is where they're at simply because that's where they're at. Whether it's been key injuries, and I'm not saying injuries overall, but like injuries to key players, Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose getting injured in those seasons completely obliterated any type of momentum that team had at being a perennial playoff team. I think that as far as an organizational standpoint, they all made the right decisions to draft the right players, minus Jimmer Fredette. But that's a different story. And I think that everyone had the right idea, and everyone attempted to execute. When it came down to it, though, the chips just never fell.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
dominoes
it's
never fell
kind
in
of like the
place.
same thing. That's like the same thing that's happened with the Pacers, except without
Mm-hmm.
the injuries.
That's exactly what's
It's just
happening to
that,
the Pacers right now.
it, yeah, it just
Definitely,
never worked out.
definitely a disappointing team this season as far as expectation wise. Expected them to be a top 4 seed this season personally, simply because the way that Larry Bird runs that organization, you're always expected to see something tough and them to be a punchline, a headline, a storyline, something. They haven't been anything except for the fact of them talking about where is Paul George going to end up at the end of the season.
Exactly.
Miami.
Yeah. So much fun. I mean,
If I say Miami, nope, Fonz, Miami. Yep, they're there.
yeah, I mean, dope. It's great job, like Dion, Goran,
Whiteside.
Whiteside. Well, not really. I don't really like Whiteside that much. James Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
James Jones. And who else is on that team? Tyler Johnson. There you go.
Tyler Johnson. Yeah, you
That
know what?
random rookie that they have. I forget what his name is. But like, shout out to Miami. I want them to get into the
Shout out to
playoffs.
Miami. Miami went on a nice little run before the All-Star break. Actually, more into it, and during the month, end of November, middle of December, went on a nice little run. Started winning some games. Fought their way into a seventh seed in for the playoff standing. Where are they at right now as far as playoff standings?
Ninth, I think. Yeah, they're ninth.
Just
Behind
outside.
Detroit. Yeah.
Just outside the playoffs. So we're talking about a team that everyone said, Dwayne Wade's gone. Chris Bosh can't play right now because of health concerns. So what we're saying is they're a lottery team. Probably it'll be like the 11th or 12th seed out in the East. And here they are fighting for a playoff spot. Shout out to Miami. Definitely playing above expectations right now. We're going to stay in the East for one more team. Or two more teams. Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks.
Man, that's just sad. Don't. It just gets so depressing thinking about the Bucks. The beautiful jerseys.
Yeah, great jerseys. Great jerseys, great players, bad record.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's.
We're doing this rapid fire thing, and they're playing for someone who I think is a great player coach. Jason Kidd is a great player coach, period. I mean, I can say what you want about him as far as getting his team together, and the expectations may be like 2 miles high, but wherever he's got his team playing at, he always has them into what they're doing. And for the Greek Freak being on that team and the way that he's playing right now, he seems very, very excited. I am almost concerned as to if they're thinking of bringing his brother up, Thonis. I would like to. Is it Thanasis?
I don't know. Some
We're gonna take a whole course on player names here after the segment. So for anyone,
it's Thanasis.
okay, there we go. I just want to see some true Twin Tower action. I want to see how these guys play together.
The brothers.
I really do. I like I've seen it work with the Lopez twins. It has worked. I've seen it work with the Morris twins. It has worked. Now I'm starting to go through all the brothers that have played together in the NBA.
No, I mean, I think for the Bucks, they should just don't really do anything and just run it back, because a starting five, a core essentially of Malcolm Brogdon, Chris Middleton, Giannis, you know, I guess Jabari. Well, no, yeah, Jabari. Throw Jabari in there, and like
still Jabari.
Yeah, Thonmaker or John Henson is like, that's a good team.
It's a really tall team. It's a lengthy ass team if you really think about it. If you try that wingspan,
and
though,
they're all like Brogdon. You know, when he was at Maryland, was like a guy, you know, type. Well, not Maryland, Virginia. You know, and Virginia's always been a team that's had solid defense. You know, really hard to score against. Shout out to Tony Bennett. And so, you know, he's a guy who plays hard and knows, you know, he doesn't have the gunner mentality. Will always be willing to share the ball, you know, let Giannis take over. And I think everybody in the team recognizes that. It's not like Jabari isn't the guy who's like, why is Giannis the bigger star? You know,
he's not.
He's not.
He was part of a program that understood that. I think if Jabari Parker were on San Antonio, he would fit that mold a little too well. I think we would probably be talking about him as DPOY across from Kawhi. Jabari Parker being traded to the San Antonio Spurs, and now the Spurs are the next championship team. And there you go.
As much as I would love that, I don't want it to happen because I want the Bucks to be good.
I think the Bucks could still be good without Parker, but that we'll get to that later. For now, he is definitely. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. He's a guy that sees the whole thing pan out, and I'm disappointed only because you like to see. You like to see the kids come up and play. You like to see them take on the old guys. I mean, I was that kid once where I was just like, I'm going to get on the court. I'm going to show all these old guys I know how to ball. I want to score 22 points against this dude that thinks he could D me up. I think that's when they got into the playoffs, there were so many storylines. This young team that got into the playoffs, Jason Kidd got into the playoffs back-to-back years, and 2 years of being a coach, and he took two different teams and all this stuff. And you got this team that could possibly do something. Yeah, they got demolished in the playoffs, but that's not neither here nor there. It's the fact that they got in. And now you're hoping that this team can continue that momentum. And I think that the kids found out that Disneyland existed for the first time, but they live in the middle of Michigan. And they're just like, well, when are we going to go back? And mom's like, well, that was a one-time thing. We actually won that trip off of a radio station. Not sure if we can actually afford to get there right now. So I think that we're all looking at that team like, I hope this kid gets back to Disneyland. I hope this team gets back to the playoffs, but we need to be able to kind of kick back and just watch this whole thing happen. So that's the sort of disappointment that we're feeling right now. Let's move on to the one last Eastern Conference team. And you know who we're going to talk about, because this team has been always in the headlines. They're going to constantly be in the headlines. And this summer is going to be fuego for this team. New York.
Yes.
Yes. New York.
Hey, I'm going to the Pacers Knicks game in MSG in 2 weeks. Nice. So I am thinking about sacrificing a goat to the Latvian gods, just so that Kristaps is healthy when I'm there.
Hey, we were. I think we talked about maybe about a month ago. We were talking about players being injured and not being able to see prospective players when you get to buy a ticket to that game.
Yeah.
And yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I
You
mean, plus
want
like
to make sure that
I
you have
want
the tickets
Willie to
out.
be healthy. Shout out to Hernan Gomez, fantasy superstar. Um, but I mean, it's the next. Well, are we talking about like disappointment, right?
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
I mean, can they be a disappointment?
Sure.
They're. I mean, actually, yeah, they could be. Like, given the state of what they are,
Well, I mean,
they're just they're
if you compare
terrible.
them to what everyone was saying during the preseason when they acquired Noah, they
Super
acquired
team.
Rose. I mean, no one said that they were gonna be a cat. Well, there were some that said, "Oh, this team could beat the Cavs," and that person is probably locked in a closet somewhere, or some sort of insane asylum, because you have to be crazy to think that uh, a year in, year out injured Rose and a recently injured Noah would be there. You basically got two halves or a half of two players to be one player that was added to a team for Carmelo Anthony and Kristaps Porzingis. And I think that to say that that team, oh, this could be your potential starting lineup, and that's I think at that time they were more talking about, oh, where will Durant end up, because Durant hadn't signed just yet. But the fact that they got Rose and Noah to join Anthony, I think it was good at the time. But I think we projected that team a little too high, just a bit outside the range. And my disappointment with them doesn't so much deal with where they ended up as far as the standings, because I knew that they were going to continue to be bad. It takes a while for teams, especially with injuries coming on, with players coming in and out, on how good they're going to be. I think it is more of how they dealt with Carmelo Anthony and how he has developed. Because in my mind, he's still a little bit too big weight wise for this league. They haven't made a decision on whether they want him to just be a scorer or a defender. He can't be both. He can't, like, great players do it, and they do it in stints, but they don't do it all the time. Like, LeBron James doesn't play defense and offense all the time. There are some games where he scores 12 points and he's a block freak, and has like 35 million steals. But he doesn't do it all the time. Same thing for Russell Westbrook. He scores out of his mind. Does he always? His steals are probably like 1 2.0. To ask someone to do both things, I think is really a lot, especially at his age. He's only a few years older than I am, and I mean, if I'm feeling the effects of age and I haven't been playing 82 games this season,
Exactly.
I, I I would not expect for him to do the same. So, just honestly speaking, I think it's a huge disappointment from the organizational standpoint that not only did you not get Durant, not only did you not land Dwayne Wade, but you also managed to kind of only get one player and overpay two players for the combination of one player. And so overall, record wise, you guys are doing solid. I'm I'm happy for you guys. But as far as how you treated Carmelo Anthony, you have been the biggest disappointment for me in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, it doesn't mean that the whole Eastern Conference, or at least part of it, is a complete waste of your time when you're watching the NBA. On the West Coast, and there's only a few teams here, so if it seems like we're cutting the segment short, we're not. It's just that there are not that many disappointments out in the West. I guess we should start out with now Sacramento.
The Sacramento Kings, the New York Knicks of the West.
Are they? Are they really? Are they
Yeah, they
really?
are.
I mean, I don't.
Terrible owner, incompetent GM, weird trades, fan bases that simply hate everything that the team
Yeah,
has become.
you convinced me. You're right.
You know, aging small forwards, Rudy Gay and Carmelo.
But they don't have Spike
Uh,
Lee.
yeah, that's true.
I mean, if
But like,
there's no one
it's
that's like
Sacramento.
Spike Lee that would go to Sacramento and sit on their bench year in year out.
True.
So
Oh well. Side note about the Kings. Did you hear the whole story about Ty Lawson?
no.
Uh, okay. No, this is not sad. Like he didn't do anything bad. It's just funny. So apparently, like on Snapchat, he asked for like what's a bomb taco spot in Sacramento. You know, man wants to eat some tacos. Why not? You know.
Mm-hmm.
So next snap is like him taking a picture of the tacos, saying like, "Oh, you look so good." And then the next day or something, he's out with like a stomach problem.
Oh no.
The tacos really did look good though. That's the thing. They look so good.
Oh
Plus, like
no.
I live in California. I go to school on the East Coast, but I have never, and I've eaten like in random uh taco places around NorCal. Like I've never gotten a
Uh-huh.
stomach problem, so I'm just lucky,
I
I guess. But like,
you
poor
know,
guy, just like the
you know,
one time. It is like I imagine it's like a well, actually, for Ty Lawson, it's probably not a cheat day.
just for a
Um,
caveat, I think that, it might also be possible that it wasn't because of the tacos. Stomach flu could also be key for
yeah,
I don't feel like coming to play today.
yeah. I mean, maybe, but like I think most people just want it to be the tacos just because it's funnier.
So,
But like
oh,
what a coincidence that
that you
asking your Snapchat followers for a good taco place would eventually lead you to getting stomach problems and missing a game.
sorry, Ty. We meant the other place.
Yeah,
The other
but
taco
it's the one
place.
across the street.
You went to the one that we said that was the bad one. We even showed you a picture, but you went to that one anyway. Thank you, Ty Lawson.
Exactly.
Um, um, wow. I mean, I don't know if you can sort of exceed that disappointment. I
I
was going to
mean,
talk about Portland for a second, but I don't know if Portland's so much disappointing as more of they are just getting they're just in the West. That's it. If they were in the East, they probably and they played like they do. If they had the team that they did and they play like they do, they probably be in the third spot in the East.
yeah. I mean,
I guess we're
I just think like it was just all not they weren't explicitly bad decisions. It's just that the decisions didn't work out for them.
yeah. I mean,
You
um,
know, it's not
what
like they
one
signed Joakim Noah or Timofey Mozgov.
right? They didn't sign
You
anyone
know,
bad.
it just
They
never
it didn't work out.
connected. I guess. Yeah. Plus, like,
Um,
I'm really biased towards wanting success for CJ, considering that he graduated from Lehigh. I mentioned that almost every podcast.
every
Um,
single time.
yeah, but like, you know, CJ and Dame are just like two of the nicest guys in the league. You know, they still live with their moms. Um, you know, don't you never hear anything bad about either one of them. There's so many opportunities for either one to call out the other. Like Dame could, you know, like the whole thing with Lamarcus is that he didn't. Well, actually, no, it was Lamarcus' thing. Actually, now that I think about it, it
Mhm.
was Lamarcus who wanted to be the star, and not the Dame. Why, like he was asking, why did Dame get all the accolades and the shoe deals and whatever?
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, like it's like you know, look at it in terms of like Bradley Beal and John Wall versus McCollum and Lillard. Realistically, I feel like their standings should have flipped. You know, I feel like because of the harmony that CJ and Wall had and Lillard had, the team should have been better, right? And like it could have the Wizards could have gone the other way where Wall and Beal just are feuding the entire year, and it basically destroys the entire Wizards season.
Mm-hmm. But hey,
So yeah,
it is what it
it's
is.
not. Yeah, it is what it is. I hope that as much as I don't think they will stay together, I hope they stay together just because they're a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, I mean, I hope that this doesn't send Portland down a bad path again of being a really terrible team.
Is there any other team that you think makes this list this season?
Disappointing teams. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the Hornets, kind of.
Yeah.
Timberwolves.
They got caught up in the Linsanity thing too, and
Yeah,
their pickup of Lance Stevenson never actually helped them. I'm glad
yeah.
they
Timberwolves. That disappointing, but
year in year
it
out.
wasn't that far off. They were one of the like quote unquote huge variance team where everything worked out and everybody like progressed really well over the summer.
Shout out to the dunk
Yeah.
contest, by the way. Talk about disappointments. Aaron Gordon being having slightly injured
Was
left
it
foot.
terrible? Was it terrible? I didn't watch it.
It wasn't terrible. It just okay. So Zach LaVine, for anyone that actually missed the dunk contest, like Fonz here, Zach LaVine was out with the ACL tear, which is another
Yep.
disappointment
Yep.
for the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll jump back to that in a second. And Aaron Gordon was participating in the dunk contest without with 70% of his left foot. So he didn't have the bounce like he should have, and it went down to Derek. I'm trying to think of his last name. Junior. He plays for the Phoenix Suns. Has never dunked in a. He's had 4 minutes combined total in an NBA for NBA play. He's never dunked in an NBA game and was the finalist for the NBA dunk contest, along with Tim Hardaway Jr., who came out on top. Was it a
No, wait,
disappointing?
no. Wasn't it Glenn
No,
Robinson?
no. Glenn Robinson III. That's right. Glenn Robinson III.
The
That's
other,
right.
the other junior, the other guy from
The
the Michigan team.
right. Yes, it was disappointing because you don't, again, going back to the same reference, you took the kids to Disneyland and they expect to go back the same time next year, and you tell them no, that was a one-time deal after the fact, and you don't really realize it as a kid until you're told, oh, by the way, Aaron Gordon has a left foot injury, so he's kind of dunking with that. He might not have the bounce this time around, and you already know that Zach isn't going to be participating in the dunk contest because he announced it and then he got injured, or whichever way around you want to put it. And so with those two things combined, you already knew that Michael Jordan and Larry Bird weren't going to go Magic Johnson and Larry Bird weren't going to go toe for toe. Michael Jordan and whoever else was trying to play against him in the league were going to go toe for toe. You're going to be watching the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers without LeBron James, without Kyrie Irving, without Kevin Love, without Klay Thompson. That's what it felt like. I mean, if you go down the list, it was disappointing in a star sort of perspective because you had this expectation now. It was everyone said that hip hop was dying, and then Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole came in, and then you're like, hip hop is back. Zach LaVine came into the dunk contest the year before. And they're like, the dunk contest is a lot more exciting. Then the Aaron Gordon versus Zach LaVine thing, however many Star Wars movies you want to make out of it, they went on for episodes and eons on end, and everyone was like, the dunk contest is back. There is no question. And then you had this stuff this year, and there was a prop. It was a drone used by Aaron Gordon, and he was essentially the only one using a prop, which would have been a really good dunk had he had made it. But it went from 100 to 0 really quick, and so maybe a lot of people were turned off from the dunk contest. They turned away from it. I did other things and came back and just asked my wife who won because she ended up watching it, the rest of it. But for me personally, I felt kind of robbed. I don't feel that my choice was wrong. Had Aaron Gordon been completely healthy, he would have ran away with it. But the fact that it came down to a couple of rookies, sorry, second year playing rookie. Well, he's not a rookie. He's actually called up from a D League. It makes me kind of wonder if we should start looking more towards D leaguers and the Sprite All-Star Dunk Contest, or guys like Kilgagnon, if I pronounce his name right, are dunking in. Really exciting dunkers, because we're expecting this thing to come in year in and year out, or expecting the Spud Webbs, the Dr. J's, the Michael Jordans, the Sean Kemps to come out and have these spectacular dunks like Vince Carter, and it's just not happening. It's like an election year. It's like on again, off again.
Hey.
Anyone else you want to add to that list, Fonz, before we head out of here?
For disappointment?
Either way, yeah, as far as the expectation from the beginning of the season to where teams are at now. Shout out to Utah Jazz.
Exactly. Shout out to Utah.
And it's not that they're a surprise or anything. It's that they finally they stayed healthy, and they're playing and they're winning, and no one's talking about this team. And I think no one talking about the Utah Jazz being a playoff team is probably the best thing for this team, because it's great. They're going. They have to have the curse of the Bambino on them if they don't make the playoffs this season.
No, they're definitely making it. The only way they don't is if like Gordon Hayward and George Hill suffer like torn ACLs at the same time.
Season-ending injuries and on the same play.
Because I mean, this is a huge season for, like, this should be our last topic. Just because it's always fun to end on the Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge year for Gordon Hayward, right? This is the first time he's ever had a good team around him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big Gordon Hayward fan because, he's a guy who does everything, He's a huge nerd, has wonderful hair. I've seen him play live. I played the Warriors. Mm-hmm. And like, he may or may not be there next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if he's not, then this is the perfect, like, this would be a nice way to end his time in Utah. It's like to finally give them a playoff series.
It's no secret that players play well in contract years. It's no secret.
I mean, but I think it's Hayward has always played well
consistently, and that's probably the asterisk next to this. But Gordon Hayward has consistently played well and has continued to improve. And I am not completely convinced he doesn't come back. It's if they become the Memphis Grizzlies,
the new kind,
the new kind, the more offensively efficient kind, the better kind. I think that Gordon Hayward comes back and he signs a bigger contract. I think Utah can afford that. And so while I may not be surprised with Utah, doesn't mean I'm not impressed.
I mean, if he doesn't re-sign, I hope he goes to the Celtics, reunite with Brad Stevens, because that would
go play with your old coach. Shout out to Butler.
That would be great, because finally, he's not a superstar, but he's a stud.
He's doing something. He's doing the thing that Jimmer Fredette couldn't do.
Second measure Jimmer Fredette.
I can't help but mention that kid. I told everyone, oh my God, he's averaging 50 points and he's coming out of. No one cares about Jimmer Fredette.
Oof. I guess.
He's scoring so many points out in China. I could score 30 out in China.
Ooh,
shout out to Starford.
We need that web series. Apollo in China.
Shout out to Starbury. It keeps scoring out there, man.
Exactly.
I guess we'll leave you guys with this. It's almost playoff time, and whether your team is looking in and out or out and in, just know this: that when it comes down to crunch time, you yourself are going to need you're going to need to sit and buckle down and make sure that you completely tune into the last 20 games, because they're almost as important as tuning into the last 2 minutes of a game. You're going to get some crap calls. Players are either going to come or they're going to go, but it gives you the complete reason of why you become a fan of that team. And whether you are in the playoffs and you're enjoying those few games that you're there, or you expect your team to win a championship, or you think that your team deserves a high draft pick because you need to kind of rebuild from the ground up, just know that your faith never really goes unanswered unless you're Philadelphia. Unless you're Philadelphia. They may have made it a moniker for their star player Joel Embiid, but it is always a process, and I hope that you all trust the process. And thanks again, guys, for tuning in. We're gonna be getting out of here. Franz, where when they find you at? Buried under the books?
Anywhere in New York in mid-March for spring break. I'm gonna be chilling with my parents.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I've mostly just hit the book. Actually, I don't hit the books that much. I study in quotes.
In quotes. And my we'll be here for the minimum every Thursday, for the maximum every Tuesday and Thursday, with spots in between if anything super exciting comes in, like LeBron James getting decapitated or anything like that. Knock on wood, hope he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be like the worst thing ever.
I think that basketball will probably stop. But if you want to find us anywhere, just follow us here. You can find my account at Joshua Thompson with the Hitting the Hardcourt podcast. We're here every week. You can always find us on Twitter. If you have any questions you want to ask us, you think that anything that should be really pressing that you want us to address, we'll definitely do it. And hey, don't forget that it's March, Luck of the Irish, and it's March Madness. Get insane. Shout out to Northwestern. Full court pass.
Ooh, yeah, sounds great.
Well, take care, guys, and we're out of here.
See ya. Cool.